talking to Kassie Manning from Every Sacred Sunday. Hi, Kassie. How are you?
Hey, Amanda, I'm doing great. It's so good to see you today.
It is so nice to sit down and talk to you. I reached out to you last year to have this interview, but you had just had a baby.
Yes, I did. I was due on All Saints, and the entire pregnancy said any day but Halloween, and she came on Halloween, my little perfect trick or treat baby girl. So she is 10 months now and just wonderful. Just love her. That's
That's
my
wonderful.
little Stevie.
Stevie. Oh, that's so cute.
Mhm.
That's the second Stevie I heard of just in the last couple months.
Perfect.
I
Well, there
know.
you go.
I know. Halloween Stevie. But anyways, yeah, so thankfully I reached back out to you and you were so willing to have this interview. And I'm so grateful because I wanted to talk with you about Every Sacred Sunday. So you are the co-creator, if I'm correct, of Every Sacred Sunday. So first and foremost, what is Every Sacred Sunday if you're listening and you don't know?
Yeah, exactly. So every Sacred Sunday, as you said, I'm one of the co-founders. My friend Christy Peters and I started it about 5 years ago, and it is a Mass journal. So we were sitting at a coffee shop talking about the Mass and how it would be so wonderful to have the readings and space to take notes all in like a beautiful journal that you could take with you to Mass and take notes on the homily or prepare beforehand. And we literally got out our phones at the time and looked on Amazon, looked on Google, and we didn't find anything that was what we wanted. And it was really this Holy Spirit moment where we said, oh my goodness, maybe we should make this book. And that just started the ball rolling on what now is Christy and I both now do this full time. We make these Mass journals, and we absolutely love it.
So what's included in this Mass journal?
Yeah. So each journal has your readings with the full, so the full reading, first reading, the psalm response, the second reading, and the gospel for every Sunday and the holy days of obligation. So like the major solemnities. And then after each set of readings, there's a journaling template. So a full page where you can take notes, you can write your prayer intentions for the week. We have a space to write down what we call Scripture Speaks, which is the verse that kind of stands out to you. That's kind of to help encourage some like Lectio Divina, or spend some extra time just really thinking about one verse if you want to focus on memorizing it. And then one section in the journaling template that says go forth. So kind of what are you taking from this week? We want to help people take that 1 hour on Sunday and not have it be just 1 hour, have it really go through the rest of their week and become something that gives a rhythm to the whole week. And then Christy is a wonderful artist. She does watercolor and gouache, which is like a mix of acrylic and watercolor. And so she does illustrations for each liturgical season. So as you go through the journal, you'll have liturgical illustrations and you just follow the date. So it's all dated and color coded with the liturgical year. So that's a little bit about it. It's a hardcover journal, and we just are so excited to have our new edition coming out now.
That's right. So of course it runs through the liturgical year. So your new one is just going to be coming out next month. Well, I should say it begins next month, of course, for the first Sunday of Advent.
That's correct. Yeah. So it goes from the first Sunday of Advent all the way through the full liturgical year to Christ the King of the next year.
Right, exactly. To the other thing too that I really like about the journal is that it has a lot of prayers in the inner, like the on the hardcover itself when you open it.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we were talking about this, we wanted something that would also be helpful for, say, someone new to the church.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone was not familiar with the Mass, we wanted to make this something where they could have it and feel very confident going into a Mass and saying, okay, these are, the Lord be with you. What do I say back? And with your spirit. It has that. And then it also has the other major prayers of the Mass, as well as, in the last year, we had the act of spiritual communion. We know a lot of people have started using this in different scenarios, given just the state of, post-COVID world.
Right, right. Have you found that this in particular is a really good journal for our CIA candidates who might be just learning the order of the Mass and what to say?
Exactly. And that was actually on our mind when we were creating it. I had a friend who asked me to be her RCIA sponsor. And I felt so unqualified. At the time felt like I don't even know if my prayer life is, as strong. Of course, you always want it to be stronger. And I felt like I didn't know what to offer her as her
Mhm.
sponsor. And that was when Christy and I were coming up with this idea. And I said, wow, I wish that I could give her something that we could do together. Like she could prepare for Mass, she could have those prayers there for her. And that then her and I could talk about it afterwards. What did you get from the homily? What did you get? Um, that was definitely a kind of a driving factor that influenced the design of the journal.
And I can see that. I mean, I definitely can. The other thing too that I want to mention that I think is so nice about the journal is that not only does it have reflection points, but it also has reflection points at the end of a lot of major seasons, right? Like
Mhm.
I remember in particular, there's an area for Lent in particular, right? Where you can kind of reflect and sit with the season ahead.
Exactly. So for each liturgical season, we have an introduction reflection. So looking forward, what is Advent about? Preparation, what is Lent about? Penance, almsgiving, just a little bit to get your mind in that mindset of, okay, I'm living liturgically. What season am I about to enter? And then at the end of each liturgical season, we have a reflection that just asks you, where have you felt God's presence through this liturgical season? It asks you to look back. It's like a mini examine, is how I think of it. And I find those ones so helpful because I always have the tendency to want to look forwards and move quickly and on to the next thing. And the backwards looking reflections, I think, are so helpful to see all the places that God has been present in these past, weeks or months that I may not have appreciated if I didn't take that time to slow down and do the reflection.
I want to take a second too and mention that, and I should have probably said this at the beginning, but I want to mention too on the podcast right now that this is not sponsored by Every Sacred Sunday. I want to take a second, if it's okay, Kassie, and let readers, or I should say, let listeners in on why I asked in the first place to talk to you and why I like this so much. So I will openly say to you, Kassie, that as a pastoral musician, I experience the liturgy in a different way from the average person, I think, because pastoral musicians, like we are so active and hyper aware of so many little details in the liturgy. The best example I can give is, like if Father so and so is giving his homily and oh my gosh, the microphones are ringing, there's feedback, where is that coming from? Or oh my gosh, the altar server just ran across the altar, is he okay? Or my cantor's having a coughing attack, what's going on? So we have so many things that we're thinking about all the time, and so many liturgical details that we are connected to. We are so focused on watching the preparation of the gifts so that the hymn that we're doing can end in a certain time. And so that's all to say that I have always experienced the liturgy ever since I started working as a pastoral musician. I've experienced it in a different way. And I will openly say on this podcast that it has been hard for me to sit with the readings.
Mhm.
Actually, Kassie, we just had our conference in July, our NPM conference. And one of the breakout sessions, the mini breakouts that we had, was how to pray while I'm working, because I do think that this is something that pastoral musicians struggle with because we're so focused on essentially becoming conduits of the Spirit so that the music can flow through us and God's presence can flow through us, that sometimes I forget to stop. So enter Every Sacred Sunday. A friend of mine who is also a pastoral musician came to me like 2 years ago. I was playing a funeral at her church,
Mhm.
and I saw this beautiful hardback book there. And during the homily, I was just flipping through it. I'm sitting there, and I just thought it was so neat. Like I just thought it was so beautiful. My friend had written. Sorry, Jessica, that I'm saying this on the podcast, but like she had written some reflections on last week's homily, and I was like, "Oh, this is so beautiful." And so I said to her, "What is this?" And so I got an Every Sacred Sunday Mass journal then. And this is my third year of having a Mass journal. I'll hold mine up. This, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you'll see that I have, this is mine, and I'll be getting a new one very soon. But I bring this all up because I really believe that this is a beautiful tool for pastoral musicians in particular, so that we can sit and center ourselves in the sacred liturgy, because I think we're so focused on the needs of others. That's what ministry is all about.
Mhm.
That this allows me, at least, and my friend, and I do believe pastoral musicians in general could use this to stop and either prepare for the liturgy, or even, like you said, take a couple notes during the homily, because Kassie, we listen to like 4 homilies a weekend. And so it's good to write down notes from the various homilies that we listen to.
Well, and like you said, I mean, you're there, your brain, it's probably hard to switch from one mode to another when you're making sure that things are running smoothly and that the music is there's so many pieces to it that you're coordinating. It's something we've heard from some other musicians as well. So when I saw you reach out, and I it kind of was helping me remember some things I'd heard from other musicians, as well as something that we hear quite a bit from parents and moms at the Mass, and that I have felt in the last year as well, being a new mom. That same idea of you're attending to the needs of someone else.
Mm.
And so it can create difficulty in where does your focus go? Um, and so I do think that, like, for me right now, preparing beforehand with my, with mine is, and this is the one for the upcoming year, but preparing beforehand is what works for me. Whereas before I would use it during the homily, whereas right now my hands are quite full holding a baby. And I think, to your point though, you hear these multiple homilies. When you've read the readings beforehand, it's like you're just kind of primed, and your heart's just like a little more ready to find something new. Like, how is God trying to speak to you through this homily that maybe you're hearing for the third time? Right? I'd be so curious to hear from you if that has been an experience of yours, if you can hear something different since you do hear them multiple times.
Oh, well, I mean, absolutely. So pastoral musicians who are listening, you can back me up on this. So sometimes we will have different priests for different masses, and sometimes we'll just have Father so and so the entire weekend. Let's say they're alternating between church locations, or maybe that's just one church location and that's where they are the pastor for. So it's kind of both experiences, if you will.
Mhm.
But either way, it's kind of like with Lectio Divina, right? We sit with the readings and we read them, we sit with them, and then we read them again, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like that with the homily, right? Where we hear it, we sit with it, and then at the next mass, a shade of something may come forward that
Yes.
didn't come back last time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it's so wonderful of you to share how using Every Sacred Sunday has helped you in that process. That's exactly what we want. Our goal with creating this Mass journal is to help people really engage with the Mass, because we think that is going to be when we can be ready to hear God's voice, that He is just so present during the liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist in such a special sacramental way, that when we are aware of it and a little bit more focused, it's just like amazing what can happen with that time.
Let's transition a little bit and talk about the Mass Journal in light of the pandemic. So, when you started to make these 5 years ago, I'm sure you never would have imagined like the journal would be so, I mean, I think even more useful. Um, yeah. So, one of the things you and I talked about right before we started is many pastoral musicians who are listening to this today may have experienced hymnals being removed from the pews in their churches, because many dioceses removed them during COVID-19, like last summer and this fall and this spring. And so, have you had anyone say that a Mass journal like this has really changed in terms of like importance or influence for them and presence for the pandemic in the last 19 or 16 months?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And we have, right? And it's been a mix of people that have said, I've really had to stay home. And whether it was during that phase where really pretty much felt like everyone was staying home, or that they've had situations where they've needed to stay a bit longer, um, that they've said it's been almost like a lifeline for them, where it gives them a tether back to their community, where they say, okay, I may not be physically in the church building, but spiritually, I am having spiritual communion. I am fully engaged by kind of some of the same physical acts. We're both physical and spiritual, and a physical act of holding a book and reading the scriptures and underlining it, I think does something to help us engage spiritually. And so we've heard, that it's been a lifeline for people that have been at home. And then for people coming back into Mass, I think, if there's not the readings there, we've heard from a variety of people that either it's difficult for them to hear, or for a variety of reasons, it helps them to have the written text in front of them. And that this then becomes almost like their personal missal that they can use, underline, highlight, as well as then look back over the past. One of my favorite things to do is to look back at the beginning of the year at my prayer requests. What was I offering up at Mass 6 months ago? And to see the ways that those have become answered prayers over time. And we've heard that from people, and that always just like gives me little goosebumps. So it definitely is something we didn't expect, right? That this would become a resource during such a strange time. But we're very humbled that it is a resource that people are using during this time.
Yeah, it's been great. In particular, I very much appreciated it during last spring. So like spring of 2020, I should clarify, because my diocese was closed for quite, a couple months. We did not have public Mass. And so it was so, I'm not ever going to diss live stream Masses right now, because that I do think that has such a benefit, but it was such a shock to go literally from it was like in my diocese, it was like first Sunday of Lent and then nothing, it was so jarring that my husband and I sat down and we used this to sit down and read and actively engage, because I do think it helped us to engage when we were experiencing Mass as a live stream for the first time, because personally that wasn't something that our parish or our diocese really offered too much of.
Yeah, I think for so many people, right? Don't think I'd live streamed a Mass ever. And, then all of a sudden I've got, all of a sudden you're a live stream queen. I have like a video of just after I'd given birth to Stevie, and it was the next day, and we're sitting there and we've got the live stream up. And I remember thinking, wow, I don't think this resource may have been available, or I would have known how to access it a year ago. So, there are some pretty crazy technological advances just in what churches have been offering, if I look back in the last year. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I do think this speaks to the pastoral musician, though, because, and maybe again, I'll just say this is me. I don't know about any other pastoral musicians that you're listening, pastoral musicians, but I tend to mark up my music scores. Like I tend to circle with pencil, but like I circle and I'll write memory, like organ registrations or specific things. I'll even write a little date on like when I played a song. And so I like to actively mark up my books. I'm that person. Yes. So I love like underlining things and circling things. Putting question marks is a big one for me. Like questioning, sitting with that. This is an active device for me, my journal. It really is.
I love that, because I've heard from a couple people that have said, oh, I just got my book and it's so beautiful, I'm scared to write in it. I'm like, no, like that's not the point. Like it is meant, yes, to be keepsake quality and beautiful, but it is meant for you to take ownership in it and to, actively use it, so that you really are so present then with the readings and diving in deeper to them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So tell us about this year. So the new journal's coming out for the new liturgical year.
They are. Oh my goodness. So let's see. I've got the pink here. Down here I've got.
So traditionally you usually do like 2 or 3 options, right? In terms of color and design for the cover.
Yes. So we started, very originally, I didn't even mention this, our very first book we funded through Kickstarter.
Because, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah. The very first original one was Navy. We funded it through Kickstarter. And it was when Christy was an elementary school art teacher, and I was just finishing up graduate school. And we had no idea how to make books, any of that. So we focused on just one cover color that year. We said navy, little conservative. And we were amazed. I mean, in the first 12 hours of our Kickstarter campaign, we raised enough in that 12 hours to do our first print run. The first year, we were just amazed. And so since then, we each year have done the 2 cover colors. We try to make one a kind of modern, clean, and so that, for example, is the blue one we've got this year. And so I've got the shrink wrap on this one, so it's a little reflective. But that's the navy one, and then we also try and do a more detailed one, and so that's the pink one for this year.
There you go.
Hard to see in the light, but it's just a lovely design. Christy designs all of these. And so we've got the 2 colors, and then our theme for this year is Be Still and Know. It's from Psalm 46. So be still and know that I am God. When we were reflecting on the last year, we felt like there was some forced stillness in a lot of people's lives, as well as the total opposite, this like frenzied pace of trying to handle and do everything in a totally new and different way. And that Psalm 46 just talks about how the God of Jacob is our refuge. And so we've woven that theme throughout the reflections that are in the season introductions through the year, as well as Christy has taken that theme of stillness and small moments, and the illustrations for this year are all kind of botanical inspired with that in mind. So.
That's great. That's wonderful. I have to tell you personally, be still, that particular scripture, it's actually it's freaking me out a little bit that you mentioned it right now, because Kassie, in July, I became full-time with NPM, and I was part-time previously, and I left my parish job to do this full-time. And someone gave me a small gold bracelet that said "Be Still and Know" on it as a parting gift, which was beautiful. And then someone else gave me a gift with a coffee mug that said "Be Still and Know" on it. And then that week I went to the pharmacy, and there was a book right by there's like a book cart, and there was a book that said "Be Still and Know" on it. And I was like, okay, I'm listening.
I get it.
I'm still. So it seems to be my motto myself this year. So
yeah, well, and I love that. And Christy and I landed on that because it's not always physical stillness, right? I don't feel like it's not, while yes, physical stillness I think is such an important part of prayer, that you are finding a place where you can find some stillness and silence in order to enter into prayer. Like you said, sometimes you're praying while you're working, you're singing and you're working. And so I don't think that be still and know always has to be this physical stillness. Rather, it can be this interior posture of trust and like deeper peace. And that's what we really are hoping that people are able to find by using the journal, that it helps them create that centering force in their life, that Christ is the center. And so, yeah, I mean, this is our little prayer cards for this year with the Psalm 46 on it. So you'll have your Be Still and Know right there.
Oh, good.
And take it with you.
I definitely will. Actually, to be honest, I'll probably use that as a bookmark all year in other books, because that'll be a nice reminder to have also for other things. So that's great. Well, so if anyone wants to know anything else, how do they find Every Sacred Sunday?
Yeah, our website is everysacredsunday.com. Our new edition of the Mass Journal is going to be available starting in October 2021. And we'll be selling it until we run out. Last year we did run out right after Christmas. So we hope that we have enough to make sure that people want to use this resource, that they can. And then if people have questions, it's just hello@everysacredsunday.com. And we answer all our emails personally. We're a small team. Christy, myself, and our friend Olivia, who helps us with some of the customer service questions. So we are just, I think the only thing I would want to say is that we feel very, very grateful to do this work. And it all started because I think we felt unqualified, but still said yes. And our motto at Every Sacred Sunday is say yes to God one Sunday at a time. And we, again, are what I always come back to, especially whenever Christy and I want to think about trying something new, we do have new ideas on the horizon, is I don't need to know the ending. I don't need to know every step. I'm a planner. I do want to know all of those things. but this element of if we can say yes in the uncertainty, that God is there with us. So
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
thanks.
Well, thank you, Kassie, so much for your
Thank you,
time. And
Amanda.
it's
This
been
was fun.
such a joy. I fangirled a little bit when we got on the Zoom call at first. I said, "Oh, I'm talking to you." But thank you, and thank you for first off making a resource that speaks clearly to even much more than just pastoral musicians. Thank you for making a resource so that we as Christians and we as pew dwellers and we as Catholics can really encounter God a little bit more deeply.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing here.
Thank you.